When assembling a full restoration display, be sure to begin by first removing the instruction sheet as well as both hardware kits received in this packout. These items will be in both cartons containing the base assembly parts as well as the retrofit assembly parts. These cartons can easily be identified by labels located at either end of the cartons you received in this packout. More specifically, you're looking for two cartons, one containing the legs, back panel, and braces, otherwise known as the base assembly parts, and the other carton containing the retrofit metal and graphics, otherwise known as the retrofit assembly parts. Now that you have both hardware kits as well as your instruction sheet, it is best to take a few moments to review the instruction sheet as well as your parts list to ensure that you have all components and hardware necessary to move forward with the assembly of a restoration display. You are now ready to begin assembling a restoration display. When assembling a full restoration display, we must first begin by assembling the base fixture. As you can see, I have the base legs laid out as shown on page 2 of the instruction sheet under steps 1A and 1B. Now that the base legs are laid out as shown in steps 1A and 1B, we can now move forward into step 1A and attach the lower brace onto the base legs. To accomplish this, we will use two 3/8 by 1 inch button head cap screws as well as a 7/32 hex key to fasten these screws, both of which can be found in your hardware kits. Be sure to not fully tighten any of the screws in this step to allow for easy assembly in the steps to come. Now that you've completed step 1A and the lower brace is attached to the base legs, you can now move forward onto step 1B and assemble the upper brace and rear panel to the base legs. First, rest the upper brace with the flange side up and tubing side down onto the base legs as shown in step 1B, and repeat this process with the rear panel. Now that both the upper brace and rear panel are resting onto the base legs as shown in step 1B, you may now begin to fasten the upper brace and rear panel to the base legs using 8 25mm by 1/4 decal bolts received in the hardware kits. It is important to install the 4 bottom bolts first, as these bolts will be going directly through both the rear panel and upper brace into the base legs. Be sure to not fully tighten any of the bolts used in this step to allow for ease of alignment in the steps to come. Now that the base fixture is assembled and complete, you are now prepared to move on to step 2, located on page 4 of the instruction sheet. We begin by assembling the upper frame onto the base fixture as shown in step 2, using 4 25mm by 1/4 decal bolts to fasten the upper frame onto the base fixture, keeping in mind that we do not want to fully tighten any of the bolts used in this step to allow for ease of alignment in the steps to come. Next, we will assemble the base deck brackets onto the base fixture, ensuring that the flanges of the base deck brackets are pointed towards the outside of the base fixture. We will use two 25mm by 1/4 decal bolts to fasten the base deck brackets to the base fixture, remembering that we do not want to fully tighten any of the bolts used in this step to allow for ease of alignment in the steps to come. Continuing with step 2, we will now assemble the base leg extensions to the base fixture, ensuring that the flanges of the base leg extensions are pointed towards the outside of the base fixture. We will use two 3/8 by 1 inch button head cap screws to fasten the base leg extensions to the base fixture, remembering to not fully tighten any of the bolts used in this step to allow for ease of alignment in the steps to come. Once the base leg extensions have been assembled, we will now fasten the 6 levelers found in the hardware kit onto the base fixture into the locations as shown in step 2 of the assembly instruction. Moving on to step 3, we will now assemble the wooden base deck onto the base fixture. Resting the base deck onto the base fixture as shown in step 3, we will use 4 35mm by 1/4 decal bolts to fasten the base deck onto the base fixture, remembering to not fully tighten any of the screws used in this step to allow for ease of alignment in the steps to come. We are now at step 4 of the assembly instruction, and will now assemble the front leg left and right to the upper frame. We begin by assembling the front leg left and right to the upper frame as shown in step 4 of the assembly instruction, using 4 25mm by 1/4 decal bolts. remembering to not fully tighten any of the screws used in this step to allow for ease of alignment in the steps to come. Now that the flanged end of the front leg left and right are fastened to the upper frame of the base fixture, we can now move forward and secure the tail end of the front leg left and right to the base fixture through the wooden base using two 35mm by 1/4-20 decal bolts as shown in step 4 of the assembly instruction, remembering to not fully tighten any of the screws used in this step to allow for ease of alignment in the steps to come. We begin step 5 of the assembly instruction by assembling the frame cap right and left to the front legs and upper frame of the base fixture as shown in the assembly instruction. We would do so using 9 35mm by 1/4-20 decal bolts to fasten the frame cap right and left to the base fixture, remembering to not fully tighten any of the screws used in this step to allow for ease of alignment in the steps to come. Continuing with step 5, we will now assemble the header frame to the front legs of the base fixture, using two 35mm by 1/4-20 decal bolts as shown in the assembly instruction. Now that you have completed step 5 of the assembly instruction, it is now important to return to and fully tighten all bolts to ensure that you securely fasten all parts of the restoration display. Once you've accomplished this, you are now ready to stand the restoration display up into its upright position. Now that all bolts are fully tightened and the restoration display is standing upright, we can move on to step 6 and install the first wing frame. To install the wing frame, lift the upper pin into the designated frame cap hole. You will then slip a wing washer onto the lower pin and drop the lower pin down into its corresponding base deck hole. Repeat this for all other wings in step 7. In the final step of the assembly instruction, we will install the graphics to the restoration display as shown in step 8. First, slide the header graphic into the top channel of the upper frame. Then, to install the side graphic, start by removing the paper backing of the foam tape attached to the back of the side graphic. Place the side graphic onto the front leg right as shown in step 8 of the assembly instruction, using two deco cap nuts and two 25mm by 1/4-20 decal bolts to fasten the side graphic to the front leg right of the restoration display.